All right, my name is Anand Ahire, and I am the Director of Product Management here at ElectricCloud. And I'm really excited to talk to you about our latest offering of ElectricFlow release today. Before I do that, I see a few ElectricCloud customers. Can you raise your hand if you are an ElectricCloud customer? Awesome, great. Now, before I jump in, one quick question. Again, by show of hands, again, raise your hand if you are either part of a team that is responsible for production rollouts or know someone who's responsible for production rollout. Just raise your hand. All right, great. So I'm going to venture a guess that what this funny graphic is showing here is something that you can either relate to or have heard a colleague of yours kind of in disgust or in the real, share this feeling with you. Fundamentally, being a release manager, especially on that game day, it's hard. I mean, I've spoken to many of the release teams, and I can tell you for sure that it is safe to say that for the most, that release event is not a fun event. It's a stressful activity where they need to take all these multiple applications that have been handed over to them from God knows where, and then follow all this myriad of complex instructions that they need to use to roll that into. Oh, sorry. Okay, obviously. That just kills it. Give me a second. Okay, now it should be okay. So what I was trying to say is this graphic, which is, it's not fun being in that war room when you're trying to get your releases through, right? It's a complex activity, it is a stressful event. It is not just that event on that day when you're trying to get your deployments going. It is also about all the activities that lead up to it, right? All the tasks that you need to do before you even get to that last environment, all the activities that need to be done in the prior environments, the entire release lifecycle. And it's fundamentally because enterprise releases are complicated, right? They are not easy. They have lots of moving parts. There are lots of teams that are involved, and it's fundamentally complicated. I mean, I wish it were a simple thing like there is a single app that is developed by one team that needs to be then deployed through a simplistic pipeline into a production, and voila, all's happy. It's never the case. I'm sure you all have felt it. When you're talking about releases, especially in a big enterprise, and that enterprise the release could be for a website or a large business service that IT is providing. Most typically, these websites or business services are underpinned by multiple applications, I mean hundreds in some cases, which have lots of components, which are developed by multiple teams, which are geographically distributed. They have their own tools. We all know we love our tools. There is no dearth of tools in software delivery. All those need to be orchestrated. And all that needs to happen on a process where you need to go through various milestones. It is complicated, right? And when we talk to some of the release managers, we keep hearing these problems over and over again, which is these guys are looking at deploying not one app, but multiple applications. They are really now more so than before, are thinking about how do I manage all my traditional releases that I have done all this along, and also get on with this whole DevOps new initiatives that are going on. They absolutely require the control over exactly determining what is the payload, what are the versions of different applications and different components that need to go where. They're also looking for the visibility of top-down visibility of, hey, how all of my releases doing? What is completed? What is not completed? What is waiting for whom? Are there any errors? Have I missed my milestone? All of that information, right? And when you think about the tool chain, right? I mean, like I said, there is no dearth of tools, and that is the case even for tools in the release management space. There have been different tools that have tried to address this problem. I mean, back in the day, even before many tools were there, you had your project managers running around each team and trying to get their status updates on a spreadsheet, and that's how some of these releases were run. You'll be surprised how many of them are still doing that. But there are still, when we looked at as ElectricFlow, the landscape for different release tools, what we found is there are tools, a lot of decent tools out there which are focused more around managing the traditional releases. And what do I mean by traditional releases? I mean, these are those big bang releases which tend to happen every 6 months. I mean, quarterly if you're lucky. Some are trying to get them down to monthly. But these are the releases where they typically are characterized by multiple teams, multiple people frantically working over that last weekend, a lot of update status, phone calls, multiple applications, as I said, a lot of planning going on, all that good stuff. So there are tools which are fundamentally targeted around this space. And then in last couple of years or so, what we are seeing is emergence of some of the new age CD tools, which are focused more around the simpler problem, a simpler application with a simple, completely automated pipeline, right? But this is obvious when, again, if you research this, and having spoken to many of you here in the room and also for other prospects, what we are finding is most enterprise customers are not at either end of the spectrum, right? They are not just doing CD, not many are doing the CD. They're not just doing enterprise releases. They're trying to manage their ship with the traditional releases that they're doing, at the same time looking at some of the new agendas that are coming, DevOps agendas are coming. And thinking about DevOps agendas, if there is one thing that we have known even before coming to this conference, and that has got reinforced in this conference, is there is no big bang there. You're not going to sleep on Christmas Eve and next day Santa is going to give you DevOps. It doesn't happen like that, right? It is a journey. It needs proper planning, and many things need to change. So while you're waiting on some of these agendas to take shape, you're not sitting idle. Releases still need to happen, right? You still need to maintain support your traditional releases, your multiple applications that are going through. And hence, what we are finding is customers are in this conundrum, which is they need to continue to support their brownfield area, the releases that they have always supported, at the same time cater to some of the new DevOps agendas which are coming up. And that's when, if you come back to this gap, is another challenge that we are seeing is, in fact, having spoken to some of our big enterprise customers, is it's often the case that more or less it is the same organization that is facing this challenge. They need to cater to a traditional big bang release approach as well as the CD agendas. And what they're realizing is not having the same tool chain, not having the same system to be able to cater to both of those, fundamentally hampering their visibility. The problem gets even further exacerbated with you have the same environments which are shared across different of these release types, and and that's where we at ElectricFlow, when we studied this market, we felt that that's where we can come in and really start offer a new product that will cater to our customers, that will allow to balance the act that they have around managing their traditional releases alongside the CD releases. And that's where we have focused our ElectricFlow release offering that I'm going to show you much more in detail. We have focused that on. We are hoping that this is the approach that will allow our customers to manage both. And the other thing is that most customers, most companies are in the transformation of some sort of the other, one or the other, right? It is the process transformation that they're trying to do with how do you reduce the sample size, how do you release faster, all the good stuff that we are hearing here. At the same time, they're also thinking about transforming their architectures of the applications, right? Moving from the monolithics to microservices. And the idea here is that how can we come up with a single technology stack, single offering that allows our customers to look at all these transformations together. And that's where ElectricFlow release is what we are focused on. And we are very, very happy to announce that this conference, we GA'd it to our customers last week, announcing it this week to the larger community. And idea here is that it's a single solution that provides capabilities for traditional release management, also the CD pipelines. It is built on the same ElectricFlow platform that powers our build test or the CI application, as well as our deploy automation application. And and the idea there is that this way you can get that true continuous end-to-end continuous delivery on a single natively integrated platform. I'll come back to this nativity and why it is important, a point a little later. This is something that is resonating well with a few other customers. But really, I'm going to give you real quick screenshots. But what I realized is that some of you might have already attended the session that our Chief Product Officer, Ahire, conducted yesterday, where we showed some of these. What I'll do is today I will actually take you through a demonstration and really show you the product. So I'm going to spend a lot of time actually showing you the product and taking it through the lenses of some of these personas. But just to highlight a few of the ideas here, right? It's we have given a very high focus around visibility, giving release managers that bird's eye view that is important, that tells them what are my releases doing, where are they, which environment or which stage they are in, are they stuck, are they waiting for some human intervention, are there any errors, what have you. Really gives you that quick visibility that then you can drill in further, right? It is underpinned by a new capability that we are announcing also around pipeline management, which is really about giving you the ability to define your release process or the overall process that you will take your software delivery through, right? What are the gates? What are the stages that you need? What are these tasks that you're going to do? I'm going to talk a lot more about it, but that is at the heart of this release engine. And then, of course, if most of the ops organizations really care about not only visibility but control, being able to have very strict control over what is the bill of material for this release. What are the versions that I am trying to install for which applications, what snapshot, what component, which versions, exactly locking that down, which environment it goes through, having full control over the end user parameters, all of that you can define. And hopefully I'll be able to show you how we have tried to remove the rocket science and all that. But there is also the idea around making sure that at all times you have the visibility of what is deployed where. Right? Is the bill of material that you decided upfront in the release, is that really what you have in the environments that you expect it to be? Or has that drifted? Having that visibility at all times. And lastly, but probably most importantly, is the idea about orchestrating entire tool chain. Right? It is about being able to call the right tools in the entire process at right time, get the data back, and provide the visibility. Right? It's fundamentally around that. I know I went through these screens rather quickly because that was intentional, because what I'm going to do now is change gears and really take you on the journey of the product, right? So here's what we are going to do in the demo. I'm going to try to break this into two separate scenarios. The first scenario is try to approach it from an ops team's perspective, where typically, again, this is not a rule, but by and large, what you see is ops teams get artifacts, the build outputs, handed over to them by the development team or the QE team in some shape or form. Either it will be published in an artifact repo or it will be put on a file system. We're going to pick the story there. We'll pick the story that these artifacts for multiple applications have been published, and now it is the responsibility of the ops teams to pick it up and take it through their own paces, their own environments. And I'll show you that journey around how do you manage the entire release from an ops perspective first. Having done that, we'll change and talk about how the same technology stack, how the same system can also cater to more of a CD use case, where you have a pipeline, and then based on a developer commit, you are able to take a release candidate through entire journey and have it move through that build, test, pre-prod, prod, and prod, right? So we'll basically try to look at these two scenarios. With me? Any questions so far? All right, let's jump in there. And if there are questions, please feel free to jump in. We'll see if we can take them right in line, or I'm obviously going to try to make time for questions. It really depends on time and how hungry you are, right? Because the lunch is right after this. All right, let's get in there. So what you realize is, okay, good. What you realize is we have tried what I'm showing here is a modern homepage for our ElectricFlow suite. And there is a very keen focus that we have tried to give around modernizing the user interaction model. There is a big design team that sits and looks through, thinks about every single interaction pattern that goes through. And I'm hoping that will manifest itself in the demo today. It's a mobile-ready interface. If we have a tablet, just whip it out and then start doing this. Obviously, some of the authoring I don't expect customers to do using mobile devices, but many of the executions, getting the statuses and what have you, can be done using that. All right, so in this demo today, I'm going to stay more focused around the release and the pipeline that underpins that. There is a lot more that is contributing for this demo, which is around what are the applications, what are their models, what are the artifacts, what are the environments. In interest of time, I'm not going to go deeper there. If for any of this, if this perks your interest, please feel free to look me up in the demo booth or any one of us in the demo booth, and we can go deeper, right? So in our demo story today, I have basically 3 applications: online banking, account statements, credit card accounts, and fund transfer. These are the 3 applications that make up the larger system or larger business service called online banking. That puts together, that's the umbrella, if you may, is what we are going to focus our demo on today. 3 applications, each of those have artifacts associated with it. There is a model behind it, there's a process around it. And the way what we are doing with our deploy automation solution that we had announced last year is really focusing around the deployment problem from a philosophy of model-based deployments. Create your application models independent of the environment that they're going to go to. Parameterize it so that you can use the same app model, same process, and have it run across different environments. Try to really attack the problem around, oh, it worked in my environment, right? We all have heard all that. So there is a model behind it. I am not going to go deeper there. So there are these three applications, and then there are environments. Just to show you quickly, there are environments around this online banking. I have created these 3 environments: production, staging, and UAT. Those are the 3 that we are going to focus on in this demo. All right, so that's our starting point today. So I'm going to put my release manager hat on, or my ops. When these titles are in flux, as you all know, it's really the activity of someone who's responsible for managing the entire process. So let's do that. I go to my release, and what you'll immediately see is you're presented with a dashboard-like view where you can see how all your releases are doing, which stage they are in, planning, in progress, completed. Are there any errors that have happened, and what were the reasons why there were errors? If they're depending on the start date and milestones or the end date that you had specified, the system will tell you if you're on track or not on track. Obviously, you can drive further automation based on those events. It gives you a very bird's eye view of what's going on in the landscape, right? So let's now begin our journey. Our journey is to create a release that is going to put these 3 applications together and take it through the paces, all right? So I'm going to start creating the release. So let's create a release, and I'm focused more on the big bang / traditional type of release, a quarterly release, and I'll change gears and talk about CD later, right? So online banking Q4 is the 2015 let's call that's our release. All right. And the first question that system asks you is pipelines. You'll notice that we have given, again, a clear focus around taking the user in a handheld fashion, asking the right questions at the right time, so that it's not exactly a visit, but giving you the right. There is a big push around progressive disclosure in the product, which is showing you the right details at the right time. So let's select a pipeline that is going to underpin. This is really the process that you want to use for this release. And I'm gonna, there are multiple of those. I'm gonna pick one here that says, this is my pipeline for major releases of online banking system. Let's pick that one and say next. Before I go any further,
criteria of selecting one of those?
This will be the, you could have created. So the question was, what is the criteria of picking one of those? Typically, when you're doing a release, you will know whether this is a major release, minor release, a patch release, and for which application. You would have created the process that you need to follow for the type of a release, and that's what you will use, right? And then it could be completely parameterized so that and I'll talk about how the auto flexing happens. So it'll be dependent on that. So before I go further, let me show you the pipeline that we picked, what it is doing, right? So these are the pipeline view, and this is the pipeline that I have picked. And a very simplistic example here. Obviously, I can make it, this will be a lot more complicated in a real setup. But because this is a ops scenario, I mean, the journey is beginning at the UAT stage, where you're gonna do the deployment into UAT, then staging and production. These are the stages, and you can add a new stage if you want to. These are the stages, and for between every stage, you can set the gating criteria, which is either an exit gate, that before you exit from this stage, you need to have all these things achieved, all these automated criteria achieved, or a manual approval achieved, right? You could have both of those, and you can set for entry or exit, right? And especially on the entry and production is important, where while exit, everyone will say, I did my job, but as a production person, you need to make sure that all those criteria are set. So we allow both entry and exit criteria. So they have been set, and in this case, I've set them up as a manual approval. So you'll realize that when we'll go through a demo, appropriate emails will be appropriate notifications will be sent out. So a simplistic way of defining your pipeline stages, and then you will define in each of the stages what tasks need to be done, right? What are the different tasks you need to do? And again, a very simplistic example here, where I'm saying initially first do a batch deploy of the applications. And this is important, which is the idea here is, to Manish's point, is how do you make it flexible? I mean, there are lots of parameterization ideas here, but what I have created is a pipeline that you don't have to hard code which applications right away. What you can say is there is a deployer kind of a task that we have added. You'll say is, so if I can go to the task, you'll see that all you're saying is deploy a task. And this is the auto-flexing mechanism that the system will, at runtime, when you run the release, will pass which applications based on the release definition that we'll go through. So today it could be 1, tomorrow it could be 2, it could be 5, depending on what your release is. It will auto-flex. You don't have to hard code that, right? And there are lots of other tasks there. You can, of course, do if you have to handpick app process for deployment, you could. And for some of our customers here, it also allows now you to take advantage of all the work that you have built into the system around procedures and workflows and what have you that you have created. If you just need to bring that up into your process, you could do so, right? So, and of course, manual task is there. So just to give you an idea that you could set this up, this is also a place where you will be able to call the appropriate third-party product if you have to, right? If you have done the deployment now, and now you need to run your test automation suite, and that's where you want to call some third-party suite that you'll have, it's quite easy for you to just call that plugin or have your own code come in there, right? So that's the quick example of this. What we have done here is, we have created this. This is the pipeline that is underpinning our release, and I won't go through the details of each of those. So I've defined that pipeline, and now the next thing system asks is, okay, tell me which applications, right? And in this case, we're going to pick the applications, the 3 applications that we said, and then not only the applications, it will allow you to pick the exact snapshots that are associated with those applications. Now, these snapshots are a way to, capture a point in time with exact artifact versions, exact components, and exact process versions, so that once QA has certified those, you have a very sure guarantee that when you try that snapshot, there is no variance. This is what was certified, and that's what you will use, right? In this case, I'm going to say pick 1.0 for the online account statements. I'll pick 2.0 and 3.0 just for symmetry, and these are the ones that I picked. Of course, if you have not taken a snapshot, it works too, but that's so you did that. And now the next question the system asks is, you told me the pipeline, you told me the application. Now tell me the matrix for the environments, right? Which is these are the stages of the pipeline that we saw, and these are the applications, right? So each application can go to a different environment in each stage, if you want it that way. And this is a screen that we have given a very deep thought around making it as scalable as we can, because in a typical release, you're gonna be managing lots of applications across lots of environment, right? And so you can of course, go and per cell you can click. But what you can do is just select all this and then say, okay, I'm going to pick up my UAT environment here, and and this will just do it for all of them. And of course, you can come to the staging and do the same. Let's just do that. I can either pick an environment that is here, or there is a notion called in the product called templates. That here's the use case around clouds, where you're going to dynamically spin up an environment. Those resources don't exist. Typically, I've seen this use case a lot more on the test side, where you're going to use your OpenStack investment that you have done, or your AWS or your own cloud, and you're going to leverage at runtime, you're going to spin up those resources that don't exist. So you want the system to provision them at runtime, and then configure them if you want to, and then having done that, do the deployment. So you could do that. I'm just going to select a template just for quick demo purpose here, chef staging. So this is this, and in this, I'll explain what that is, and I can come here and say OB stage, and I can just put timestamp because this can be used multiple times. Come in here, said okay, and now it knows whenever. So when the release will run, what it will do is automatically spin up those resources. Let me give, and this is an important thing that we have added a release or two back, a notion called, this whole environment template that I talked about is underpinned by a capability that we have called resource templates. Now, resource templates is a way of making sure that you are able to leverage your cloud investment easily, right? And it is absolutely always possible to use the deep API layer of all of these products and really roll up your sleeves, call your best guy every time. But the attempt here is again to remove rocket science from defining these templates, right? So what I showed you in the environment template that we used is really underpinned by this particular template. I'm just going to give you a quick view of that. We're not going to obviously run this today, because ElectricFlow will run fast, but it takes about 3 minutes for an AWS instance to come up, and Chef to do 5 more minutes. So if there is interest, I'll show you all that. But in the template, it is completely pluggable architecture. You can have an Amazon or OpenStack or Azure or Helion or your own cloud implementation, VMware, of course. You can pick those, and then in this case, I have done it on Amazon. The system will ask you, okay, how do I connect to the Amazon account? And there could be more than one account. And then once having connected, the next question is, okay, what kind of an instance do you want, right? What kind of an instance do you want? Remember, this is just a template. You're defining the recipe, if you may. So in this case, I'm saying, yeah, I just need one. It is of type M3 medium. And I want it in this particular zone of Amazon, right? All that good stuff. You can just provision, or if you're if you're using an AMI which has the perfect configuration, you will be done. You'll be optionally, you don't need to do any further. But many customers are also using configuration management tools like Chef or Puppet to have now that they have provision a VM, you need to make sure that it is configured properly so that the payload or the workload that you're going to put on top of it performs perfectly, right? So you could come in, optionally give the Chef, Puppet, Ansible, SaltStack, what have you, provide that details, tell it how to connect to it, and then tell which recipe to use. Again, a very simplistic one. This is actually the run list Wildfly that I'm using. It could be your Tomcat, or this is where you're getting your middleware installed and configured. Right? So this is how you are using your resource templates, and these resource templates are underpinning the environment template, this staging environment template that we used in our releases, right? So it's all it's all coming together there. But in this case, for now, just in interest of time, I'm just going to select a static environment that is existing staging, and just fill this out in the production. I'm just going to use prod. Great. So I set that up, and as the next thing you will know is that it's never as this simple, right? There is always a case for some end user input parameters that you need to specify based on the application. Any parameters that you have defined, the system will allow you to ask those, and this list could be as big as you have the need to. In this case, just to prove a point, I'm going to select, okay, for online account statements, I need input for a particular parameter before it could proceed. Okay, tell me the platform. Again, a very far-fetched demo scenario there, but I did that. So, I mean, you went through these paces of defining the release, and now you're pretty much close to being ready for having authored it. And then you say, yeah, ready to go. You can capture your notes. Obviously, in a long-standing release, this will be developed over time. So there are lots of releases you can capture. You can capture the start date and end date of the release, and great. So in less than a few minutes, we have actually defined our release, the entire release. We defined the bill of material. We told what versions to use, which environments to go, and other things. And then this is a release. It is in planning. It can be triggered through a programmatic event if you want, but in this case, I'm just going to start the release manually. And now this will begin the process of executing the pipeline that we saw, right? The notion of getting the immediate visibility is right here. You can see that the system has already started showing you the results, that it has now moved into UAT stage. It has done some of the task, and you can go real quick. And then it is also telling you that it is waiting for a manual task by Quincy. Right? So, and the Quincy would have got an email, and he or she can click on it, and will bring you back to this. Let's just take a look at that quickly. If I go in here deep, right, now this is the actual execution of that pipeline that we saw. Right? What it did was it did the batch deploy of the applications, exact versions. Some of these are dummy tasks, but you can understand what this is doing. And now for Quincy, it is waiting for Quincy for doing some manual input. You don't have to, but just to prove the point here. And then Quincy comes, and he or she looks at it and says, yeah, you know what, doesn't look good, right? And I can specify my evidence if I have to, because the layout is not good, and I'm going to fail this. I'm not happy with this release because there is some issue. So now you actually caused the pipeline to stop. This particular, if you go back to our release, this actually error will bubble itself up, and it will show that, yeah, it had failed in the first environment. And basically you get all those errors bubbled up. Before I move forward, let me show you one quick view of what we have achieved here, which is around what I talked about path to production. And now we just remember what we did was, up until now, we just deployed in the first environment. And here is the view that we will come back to, which is this was the release manifest or bill of material that we specified. It is showing that, yeah, I've gone only as far as UAT, and these are the versions. I can go further down here, and it will show me exactly the component versions and other details there too. But this is a view that is always available to you at any given point in time. So let's come back here, and the demo scenario is saying, I'm going to quickly change the payload, come back here and say, you know what, there was a defect there. I'm going to change this guy to, say, 1.1, and this guy to, right? I updated my bill of material, right? Because those are the artifacts that my dev team told me. If you go to the view that we just saw, you'll immediately see that what is in the environment UAT has now drifted from what the release manifest is telling you, what the planned view. At all times, you will have the view of, yeah, what is there, and if there is any drift associated with it. In a real setup where there are lots of environments and lots of details, lots of applications, lots of versions, every single detail matters when you're troubleshooting or when you're trying to get the audit run. So let's come back to our pipeline again. I'm now going to rerun or release again. I'm going to restart this, and it will start the process again. Now it will start rerunning the pipeline.
Restart from scratch, or where it left before?
In this case, I'm restarting from scratch because I changed the actual application, the versions, right? So let me come to Quincy here, and then in this case, I'm going to now let it flow forward. And I'm going to say completed. Let's just say it is fine. Obviously, I'm not fit for being in these roles because of my comments here. But it moves forward now. You realize that it has moved forward, and now it is waiting for that gate. The gate that we saw earlier in the pipeline, which is, yeah, everything in the UAT has done, but now before it can leave UAT, either Raj or Quincy needs to approve. So in this case, I have the superpower of an admin. So I'm just going to say, good, okay, go forward. All right, I can go forward, and now this will actually put it in staging, and you get the picture. It'll keep moving forward, right? And then, that's how you will be able to get to the actual production, and then initially it'll have all that. You can always come back to if I show here, you can always come back to all your pipeline runs. And the other point is at any given point in time, you will be able to, let's just pick one of these guys, right, which I had run before. Any point in time, I could, if I have to triage, what had this guy said when he or she had approved at that time, you have a very clear track record, auditing purposes, right? All that data is available, and you can get back to. So that is what the release that we're looking at, and of course this view gets continue to get built up. I'm not gonna bore you with further taking it all the way to the production, but that's the story, the first scenario that I was trying to show you, that how you can create a pipeline and that takes it for a release management scenario. All right, so I'm gonna change gears now and gonna talk about a second scenario, about not so much focused on release itself, because release is more of a notion associated with the last mile in the production, but in the atmosphere that we are here, continuous delivery and DevOps, I'm going to show you how the same pipeline's capability can be used for driving your complete CD story, end-to-end delivery story. And so I'm changing gears here. I'm going to go back to my pipelines, and in this case, what the pipeline that I have is a CD release pipe. The other pipeline I have is this. Now it has got few more stages. It doesn't start at UAT. It is starting at the. Can you guys see? All right. It is starting at an environment, right from the dev stage, and it's going to go from dev, QA, UAT staging. Let me increase this a bit, right? And then in the dev stage, I'm doing few tasks here. In the dev stage, I'm going to do the build, and I'm going to do in that build process, I have accounted for unit testing and code review, capture the build evidence, do a code scan, do the actual deploy. And in fact, you could also create a snapshot on the fly, which then that could be the thing that you pass through the releases, right? So you do all that in this particular stage. And then in QA, similarly, you'll be able to provision the versions if you want on the fly. So this is my release for pipeline, that is for my CD, for online retail store application. Now what I'll do is I will try to start, and I can start the pipeline right here using this, but what I'm going to do is try to simulate this trigger of this pipeline from a dev commit, which is the developer has, this is our CI dashboard right here, which is really trying to show the view of all the jobs around CI in a nice fashion to you. The pipeline that I showed you could be triggered if a developer commits code and that gets checked into the source code repository. We have our CI system listening into it, and it will automatically trigger it. Obviously, I'm not a developer, so they don't trust me with making those changes. So I'm going to try to simulate this using just right here. So trust me, when I'm doing this is actually simulating the this thing. Yes, Anand, you have a question?
So this is what you would default to trigger pipelines, like your CI mechanism?
So the question is this what we default to trigger our pipelines? And there's no default. The pipeline can be triggered either manually or programmatically. Right now what I'm showing you is through a run configuration.
Right.
Yeah.
So you will still use your CI schedule.
Yeah. It is. It could be either. Right? You could just do it based on some other event altogether, right? Which is, you saw the starting of a release, kick the pipeline. Yeah. There is no CI event there, right? So there are different ways of triggering it. So our release, the CI event has happened, and then the release has been triggered. Now the pipeline has been triggered, and it will go through the paces of doing the deployment and moving all that.
When pipeline was triggered on the CI board, does it show the kind of normally what it shows the progress, right? Like a spinning box, like a circle that is running. Yeah,
it showed.
It shows.
Yeah.
It was solid color.
Yeah, so right now in this demo I have tried to, so this is a question mainly for someone who's used the product deeply, but it is because I have wrapped it in a procedure which I launched it. So, but come back here now. The pipeline is running. The point is that you have the visibility completely. You can obviously point to some of the stats, which is important as you're looking at driving CD. Lots of tools that need to be orchestrated, and you gather a lot of evidence, a lot of data along the way. What the system is able to do is get all that data and present to you in a single place instead of you having to scour for that information all over, right? Matters a lot when you're trying to troubleshoot or audit things. In this case, what I'm able to do is point to Jira's if I have to. Again, a very demo scenario. This is just an image, by the way, but you can imagine that it could actually pull the right details from the Jira system, and same thing it can do for unit tests. Right, I have all the details. So our pipeline has run, and now it moves forward. It is actually now in QA stage, waiting for Quincy again to approve, and Quincy approves it, okay, and then it moves forward. I mean, this now follows the pattern that I had established before. The point I hope I was able to make is you have the same technology, the release and pipeline, both come together, allows you to manage your traditional release operation approaches that you're doing, where things get handed to you and you're doing big bang, or you're trying to do a CD where you get the CI, the code checked in and you want to move that forward. Allows you to control the pace at which you are moving, put the right checks and balances in your stages. So that is what I wanted to show today in the demo. Any questions before I kind of have some of the closing remarks on this and talk about how you could get your hands on this? Give me a second. Okay. Yeah.
As far as the pipeline goes, when you're setting that up, is there like a simple copy function? So if you've got one whole pipeline set up, if you want to kind of duplicate it and have a few pieces slightly changed, can you kind of do a copy where it brings everything over?
Sure.
And then you just kind of do it?
All right, cool. Let me repeat the question. The question is, as far as pipeline is concerned, is there a capability to copy or clone so that you can take that master, if I can say that, and then change some of the things and use it? You have both choices available, which is you can refer to a pipeline that is already there. And the elegance of that is if you're using that pipeline at 10 different places, you can make a change at one place and you get it. At the same time, you have a way of copying too, which is you can create a copy. And when I actually attach the pipeline to a release, I could have chosen make a copy. There was an option that I could have chosen to make a copy. It gives you both. It gives you both options. I mean, there are a few other things. All of that you saw here can be actually programmatically created using DSL, domain-specific language, that we announced earlier, right? So that was the main thing I want to talk about ElectricFlow release. But if I summarize, really, what we are hoping that this is a system that allows customers to have a single technology stack to cater to your brownfield enterprise, the traditional releases approaches, as well as cater to the new age CD on a single technology stack. One of the fundamental thing that I want to underscore a key point, which is while there are solutions out there, and I'm not going to say good or bad about anyone out there, most of the solutions for release automation or deployment automation or CI, they have approached the problem in silos. Right? There is a good silo tool for release, good silo tool for deploy, good silo tool for CI. While it works great, as we are realizing in DevOps, there is a clear movement to bring teams together, try to remove the barriers between the teams, evolve the culture. There is also a strong push to remove the barriers in the technologies that are used to. So with the release option, that the release that we are announcing here, what it is able to do is give you a natively integrated story so that it's all on a single platform. It's the same object store, same persistent model, same archiving story, same disaster recovery story. And as compared to some of the options out there, if you create an application in some of those products, it'll take maybe 30 minutes or so before it shows up in a release because the sync needs to run. So the native story really, really matters. And of course, there are a few other things that are here, but that to me is one of the key things that we are getting a lot of strong feedback from customers on. So while I showed you this, I just want to repeat the announcement that has been already made by a few others in the conference, which is we're also in this time frame announcing a community edition for our product, so that you can download it right off of our website and start and play with it. Right, so ElectricFlow release, it is ElectricFlow suite overall. That freemium is more focused on the deployment automation capability just because of the content, but you have all the capabilities right there. We are trying to gate that with 10 hosts, which we think will be sufficient to play it out and in fact use it for some of the production things. So with that, that was my planned talk. I promise that I'll try to get it done before the time. And looks like it is. So let's open it up for questions. Any more that you have? Yeah.
Community edition, a few questions there. The number of agents you said 10, right? About any other restrictions on how many users you can create or projects or anything?
Sure. Yeah. So the question is about community edition. And I mentioned that the only difference really between the premium or the enterprise commercial offering versus freemium is 10 hosts. So the question is, are there any other restrictions around number of hosts or what have you? So at broad level, none. You get the same bits exactly, and we are just controlling license-wise, and you get 10 registered agents. We are not capping you on number of steps or what. There are only other two caveats is you can maximum use 3 applications in the system, and then you cannot really have a high availability story with clustering because it's an appliance, so you have one single server. But those are the only two things. Apart from that, you get the same exact car. We're not trying to remove the steering wheel or the dashboard or whatever, just same exact car, just a little less gas in it.
So Electric Commander is now renamed as ElectricFlow, right?
Yes, the question is Electric Commander is renamed as ElectricFlow. Hold that thought after, there is a session right after this, roadmap session. Are you going to come to that? Yes, the answer is yes. I'll talk a lot more about that. The platform is named as ElectricFlow platform. The overall suite is ElectricFlow. Right? So these are the modules. This is a module on top of the platform. Right? Any more questions? Yeah.
When you selected the applications for deploy, so it was in manual way, can I do it automatically with some criteria like pick up only the latest?
Yes. So the question was when I picked up the application while I was defining the application release, I picked it up manually. Can I automate it? And can I pick up the latest? So the simple answer is yes, which is that question typically applies more. There is a layer that I did not show today, which was in the application there are components, different artifacts. So the application is a very loose term. Right? What the application thing that I was looking at is a collection of artifacts. There could be WAR file, DB scripts, configuration script, what have you. Each of those have versions. The application that I picked there is actually pointing to multiple of those. So when you define the application, there you have a control over, do you want latest, or you want to have, and I can show it to you in a second, do you want to have latest, or do you want to point to a version? But you could also have the same capability while defining the release. If you want to programmatically do it, it's possible to do so.
So the control is within the artifact management level.
Let me show it to you. Right? There's all sorts of controls. It controls where you want it to be. So let me show it, if it allow me. So the screen that I did not go to deeply is this application screen. So these 3 are selected. They are really namesake applications. To make that point, I'm going to go to a different application. So the application is Heat Clinic, right? And now this is what the application model looks like, right? These are the tiers, these are the components in them. And now for this component WAR file, I can actually point to the location where it is coming from, the artifact repo here. And this is I can choose the latest version, or I can point to an exact version if I want. And of course, I can change my repo to Nexus or Artifactory or file system if you want.
So you can schedule the release to run automatically then based on the setting?
Based on what?
Based
release and deploy?
At this moment, I showed you what is manually triggered, but if you want to schedule it, it'll be possible to do so. Yeah. Right. What we hear most of it is the actual game day deployments are scheduled. So yeah, you can always come here on a game day. You can specify the schedule, right? Which is if I go back and right schedule, and I can specify the schedule. When do you want to run? Once at what time? And you can do all that.
Yeah, I think what we're thinking is can we use this on
Continuous
continuous delivery?
delivery typically gets triggered. Again, it depends on what you're really trying to achieve. Continuous delivery, more often than not, will get triggered on a developer commit or something happening other than a time schedule. But if you can choose both.
True, okay.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
But it can go all the way through.
Yeah. So yeah, there are lots of triggering options available. You want to automatically trigger it based on an event, or if you want to schedule it, you will be able to do so. Any more questions?
One more question.
Yes, sure, please.
So this is the new platform. So in Electric Commander, there are also workflows.
Yeah.
So what's mainly the difference? This is overrides the workflow with some additional feature, or it's still?
Yeah, so the question is, what I showed here, pipelines, great, but there is a kind of similar sounding capability in our platform. For some of you that may not know the platform, which we used to call Electric Commander, it's got a workflow capability. How do they relate? The question is, the answer is, workflows or procedures, they don't go away. I mean, those are still the building blocks, general purpose units of automation that are available. So the platform was able to solve this problem of automating either task on a single machine or set of things through a process all along. But where there was a challenge is it did not speak the language of a pipeline. There was not that higher level view, higher level abstraction, not only to be able to create your process appropriately, as well as bring the visibility, right? So pipeline is a higher order construct than a workflow. I don't know whether you caught it. It is possible to kick off a workflow from a pipeline if you want it that way, right? So they work in tandem. Workflow is more of a general purpose automation capability that can be morphed to function like a pipeline, but then you are doing the heavy lifting, right? So yeah, they work together. Yeah.
So you're showing schedules here on the application level. Do you have schedules on the release or the pipeline level?
So the question is, I showed you the schedules on the application level. Do I have schedules on the pipeline level? Not yet straightforward. It could be done through encapsulating that through our schedules. All right. If there are no further questions, I hope this was useful. I have left some of my business cards here if you want to just grab them and shoot me an email at a later point if you're going to think about this later. And I'm going to be around in the booths. So yeah, please feel free to look me up. Thank you.